Check. Yeah, I think we're going now. If we're not, we will be very, very shortly. So yeah, let's just take it away.
All right. Welcome to Living in the Scriptures Live. We are looking back at All I Want for Christmas, it's kind of our new series, and we're looking at how Jesus is the greatest gift of all. So let me ask you, Caleb, easy question right out of the gate. What do you want for Christmas?
What do I have for Christmas? Man, I struggle with this question because there's lots of things I want. I was just looking at larger storage space for my computer here, so I can dump all my iCloud stuff right onto my computer instead of keeping it in the cloud. I just did a nice wrap, like a vinyl wrap on my electric guitar, and I kind of did okay of a job. And I thought, man, it'd be sweet just to have go buy a sweet electric guitar. When it comes to material things, there's no end of things that I can fancy.
I know on Sunday morning I mentioned most of the stuff that I kind of want revolves around my bicycle, and there's probably a few knickknacks here and there, but by and large, I think I kind of
For
throw it out
Christmas,
and say I want a new bike, but really I already have a fairly new bike, and I'm quite satisfied with it overall. Although my wife would tell otherwise because I always complain about something, or she always sits there and complains about. I say that I complain about something. She laughs because if you audience or you guys ever get a chance to watch a video called the Rocky Mountain Bike Christmas, and she just says that's you, and it's a fella who basically dreams about a bike and then is unsatisfied with the bike that comes, and the whole message is like all bikes are cool and just go out for the ride.
right?
But it just highlights this idea of the fact that if you want a new bike or you want kind of whatever it is, um, that's not what Jesus came to give us and what would really satisfy our souls. We talked about hope this last week and the idea that Jesus came to give us hope that is eternal and hope that is assured or guaranteed. But the whole series is we're looking at different characters from the Gospels and their encounter with Jesus and what Jesus means to them. And so maybe in a broader sense, like what does Christmas mean to you, Caleb? Like, or describe that first encounter with Jesus if you remember it.
Hmm.
So what does Christmas mean to you?
Uh, Christmas time growing up was very much focused on Christ in terms of the time that we spent as a family together or extended family on both sides. I know that Christmas, especially on my father's side, like his dad, my grandfather on my dad's side, Christmas was always he made sure that there was always time that the extended family was gathered around, and he would speak at length about what Christmas meant to him through Christ and through his coming into the world, and also the gift of being able to celebrate in a free country, coming across from Ukraine through Stalin's, escaping from that whole scenario and being in Canada where Christianity is an option. You're not going to get imprisoned or worse for that, and you're not subject to the state's gross overreach into your life for believing what you believe. And he loved being in having Christmas as a family in Canada and being able to share that. I don't know how much of that resonated with me as a young kid. I was spend a lot of those days listening to him, but also keeping an eye on whatever was under the tree. How many boxes were there and which one was for me. And on my mom's side, my mom's father, he loved the Christmas lights. He loved the decorate. He loved Christmas and all of the just the feeling of it and the experience of it. And he knew for sure that the gifts under the tree were a big part for us kids. And I actually remember, now that I think about it, He got us when I was young, and much to my parents' chagrin, he actually bought us a Nintendo Entertainment System. I think at a time when my parents had expressly told him that was not an option, and he said overruled, and he and it just like, I mean, the fighting in our family, the wonder and the love of gaming kind of really took a nose, but there was a lot of fighting in our family. I don't know if we were old enough to handle that yet. But that was like, he loved gifts, and he's like, I'm going to get him the best gift I can. And those things have kind of stuck with me. I've always loved the season. I always loved the music of Christmas, actually. There's a whole kind of like, even non-Christian music that's Christmasized. There's something kind of neat about hunkering down with the fire and the cold, and the whole ethos of that gets reflected in some of the music that kind of rolls out around Christmas time. But lately, to bring a long answer to a close, I just am stunned at the implications of the incarnation, that God became man. And a couple of years ago, it dawned on me in a really clear way that when the second person of the Trinity took on human flesh, that was not a one way. There was no return trip. That was forevermore, and so it wasn't like when Christ ascended to heaven after his death and resurrection that his humanity was that he shed that, or he went back. All right, I did my work and now we're reset and I can finally. No, he went to heaven and he took humanity to heaven in his own person. And every year the implications of that sink in at a deeper level for me, and so there's just such amazing satisfaction when you reflect on all of what the incarnation means, what it means for us that there's a human being in heaven right now, that God took on human flesh forever. There's a lot of pastoral and spiritual implications that tie to the theme of hope that you touched on this Sunday. Those are some things that Christmas means to me.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about hope, but yeah, just kind of, I loved your answer about like, just how much the incarnation was a one-way street. And it is, it's really powerful image. One of my favorite images in the scriptures is really in Revelation, when
Right.
they saw the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.
Oh yeah.
And he still is a lamb who was slain, right? Like the marks of the cross still. We don't believe that Jesus is a woolly sheep, but that metaphor is that, yeah, he still bears the marks of the cross.
Yeah.
It never leaves him. And that is just like, wow, that's beyond. For me, Christmas has always been a bit of a mixed bag at times, because I think I grew up, my parents didn't really, like they were immigrants from China and then Hong Kong and into Canada. They never grew up with Christmas, so Christmas was not that big of a deal. Although we always got the time off, and I think my parents did the best they could, right? Like often we would have a meal together. But I think Christmas became something more important when I was in my 20s, because most of my siblings came to Christ in our 20s, and we celebrated. It was kind of the first time. It was kind of strange, yet in a strange way, because my wife Tara would always just laugh, because I think that one of the first Christmas that we celebrated at our house, my dad made a turkey, and there was like white rice on with the turkey.
Yeah.
And the I guess all of it just didn't quite add up, and it was like, that's just kind of normal. But what Christmas now means to us, I think, yeah, there's I love to see the excitement of our kids. There's always a little bit of argument back and forth about decorating and what Christmas should look like, but there's never not the excitement, right? Like and all of it. I think for me, when I think about Christmas and Christ, yeah, it's actually, I think about when I say the first Christmas, I think Jesus kind of redirected my life. Like I look at some of the stories that we're going to be looking at, and um, I am just so grateful that Jesus came into my life when I was about 19, 20 years old and really changed the direction of my life, gave me a gave me a deeper purpose, gave me a truer sense of meaning than than I could ever imagine. And so thankful for that. And so we kind of come back to this idea of Jesus gives us hope eternal. And when I say that, what comes to your mind, Caleb?
Uh, well, in connection with Christmas, and I guess just in connection with what I said before, um, Christmas is the first kind of step of God with us in the flesh, where humanity is divinity takes on humanity and God takes on human flesh. And I said before, it's a one-way trip, and I think that is the beginning of hope. What is hope in contrast with despair or uh, emptiness or cynicism? I mean, the world gives you plenty of ammunition for those sorts of feelings and emotions. But if God is truly with us, like it's not your friend with you, it's not your parents with you, it's not your government with you, it's not your money with you, it's God with you. And God with God, God makes all things new. God is endlessly creative. God is redemptive. And so in this world and in this life that he could have cast off, it's like no, he came to be one with us. He came for us, to be together with us. And really that's a very simple way of saying it, but it's actually the whole summary. He didn't come for any other reason except for to be with us and for all of the implications of what it would mean for God to be with us. It would mean that we could be restored as human beings. We could be restored to our original purpose. And in fact, even taken higher than that, because our original purpose was to give honor and glory and praise. But now, because he came in not just to be with us, but to be with us in our sin and to actually take the burden of our sin from us, to take the guilt of our sin, to take the punishment that brought our peace, was laid on him. And because he did that, it's not even that our purpose is restored, that we have fellowship with God, but we glorify God for his mercy and his grace and his redemption, something that was kind of unknown in the world God created it before he came in, before Christ came and redeemed us. Like, we are the redeemed, we are the rescued. And to do that, it just meant that he took us complete union with all of his people. It's just a glorious thing for me to think about. So I think Christmas is just the beginning of me and God with me, and there is no end to that, because Christ is still a man, and what he was born is the beginning of that. It's that light, that hope, that revelation of the true heart of God, and that none of those things change. No part in this story of Jesus does any of that revert or go back. It just goes it's only forward. And when Christ comes into our life, it's only forward. Like, everything is ahead of us. Anyway, those are some of the things that I get thinking about.
Right on. And I know, like, for me, what's always struck me is how much, base Pascal's perspective of, like, we all have God-shaped holes in our heart. What was stunning this last year was just how universal that is. And like I had quoted from Jonathan Haidt, kind of like a secular psychologist, or I don't know if he's a psychologist, PhD lecturer at NYU and things like that. But he just says, I believe that, like, that we do have this God-shaped heart. And if it doesn't get filled with something noble and elevated, modern society will quickly pump it full of garbage. And I thought that's an interesting observation from someone who claims not to know God, and just saying, somehow we might not agree with how it's come about, but we do have that. And I think when I think about hope that God, Christ brings, is that that's what's being filled in my heart. Because there's those questions in my life that are like, what happens when I die? What is history headed somewhere? And I look around and I'm like, oh man, this doesn't look good, or this doesn't look good. And we've humanity has never got all of its pieces together, and I don't think we ever will. And so, really, when Jesus says, I'll show you the way home, it really strikes a chord for me.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that Jesus is the way home. This is not home. This is not home yet. And the more I make it home, the more I will be disappointed. And there are times when I make it home, and I think I'm going to kind of create this and that. And yeah, don't get me wrong, there's amazing blessings, but it doesn't fully and abidingly satisfy.
Yeah.
My home is with Jesus and into eternity and beyond. And I think that for me is really the hope. So, was there anything that kind of struck you, Caleb, and anything that you felt like we should speak a little deeper into?
Yeah, that quote from Jonathan Haidt, it reminds me of what C.S. Lewis says too, which is that, if I find in myself a desire that no earthly thing can fulfill, or nothing in this world can satisfy, then it's logical then to conclude that I was meant for another world. And the cool thing is that other world is not, it's not this, we don't have to escape from, the realities of this life. It's that other world has invaded this one. And there's this sense in which, this world is not our home, but God has come down, and Jesus is here, and the Holy Spirit is here, and the church is here, and there's a redemption work that's happening. And whenever we see people embracing the life of Christ, embracing the righteousness of Christ, turning away from sin and self. And the reality is, if you look at the trajectory of Jesus' life, and this is maybe where it gets a bit scary with the materialism of Christmas, which like I said, I was just looking at like more storage. It's like, do I really need that? Can I make do? Can I make do with the terabytes that I have? Well, here's the deal. When Jesus came into this world as a baby, and you look at the trajectory of his life, it ends in such a way that really exposes the things that we do set our hope on. Because Christ dies alone, penniless, abandoned by his friends, and it's the ultimate tragedy. It is a maximum tragedy. Cut off in the prime of his life, betrayed by the people that he ministered to and loved, betrayed by his closest friends. It's a horrible miscarriage of justice that he is even on trial, let alone actually tried and crucified. Everything is backwards. It is the darkest, bleakest, most depressing story, unless there's a resurrection. And it turns out that this man who died in this way was elevated to the highest place. And now he's the King of Kings. And now he's ruling, he's ruling the nations with an iron rod, and he's shattering them through the preaching of the gospel. However you want to frame those things, the reality is that Christ's life was not one of accumulation of gifts. It was the accumulation of those the Father was going to give him, his disciples and his ministry. And that's something that I have to wrestle with, because I do love the trappings that can come with Christmas, the material trappings. And yet there's still a mission that we're called to as Christians, to seek the lost, to be pointing people to Jesus. That takes effort, and that takes a denial of self sometimes. And but if you think about how Christ ended his life, and you remember that Christmas was the beginning of that, then I think that has some big implications for us. And if we truly believe the resurrection, then, and we truly believe that God is seeking to reward those who, serve him faithfully, I think those are all things that we can keep in mind that help us recognize, right, where did Jesus put his hope? Where did he put his trust? It's not that we have to be, just like embrace poverty. I don't think that's necessarily the case. But we do need to be really remembering that it's more blessed to give than receive, and that our lives are meant to be spent, not hoarded. We are to spend our lives, we're to spend our energy, we're to spend our resources in ways that will ultimately lead to treasure in heaven, lead to the building up of the body of Christ, lead to the edification of the saints, and to the salvation of those who are still outside, who still don't understand that God has come into this world to rescue sinners, and to give them eternal life that never ends. And you can know that you have that life, and we need to help people know that they have that, and understand if they don't yet.
Yeah. Well, then let's dive. One last question. I know we're going to wrap it up, but let's kind of make it
My answers have been long today. I gotta shorten them up on this.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking from a practical standpoint, as parents, how do we keep the focus on Jesus and not all the presents and all the tinsels and all that sort of stuff? Because I love what you said. And, for us kind of refocusing on Jesus, but as a family, as a dad of 4, as a dad of 3, like, what do we do to help, not make Christmas overly about all the other trappings rather than Jesus?
I think in our hearts, we know that whatever we unwrap at Christmas has an expiration date. Okay?
Yeah.
And I think that if you're going to begrudge the material is the material, the items, if your way of, I think that you can approach that by being anti-materialist. I don't think we need to be anti anything. Okay? We don't need to be anti-gift. It's good to give gifts. Hopefully the gifts you give are, thoughtful. There are gifts, there are material things that just, they feel great. But how you embrace it is you recognize that the people around you don't have an expiry date. And the joy of God with us does not have an expiry date. The party, the celebration that God has come here, we don't have to go out and find that he came all the way, even into human flesh for us. I think you just got to let the big 3, faith, hope, and love, and if you're doing it all year, then Christmas means you just have all the reasons to do that even more. But if you're not, I just say just go back to that faith. Yeah, we believe that God is with us. That means impossible things are possible. That means that if God is truly in our lives, then there's no problem that we can face, and without the hope that it could be different tomorrow. God could change it all tomorrow. God could flip everything on its head, and we could be going a totally new direction tomorrow. That's what it means for God to be in the picture. Anything is possible. So we always got to be holding out hope for, that's hope, and faith. And faith means like what God started, he's going to finish. So we need to celebrate that. Look, God is doing good stuff. He's building his kingdom here in us. And we have a part in that forever. And love, how can you make every day count with the people around you? How can you go deeper? And I think oftentimes if you don't know what to do, you don't know really how to bring Christmas into it or bring Jesus into it, he's already there. So just ask, say, God, where are you at? And listen where he leads you in your conversations, by that spirit, connecting with your spirit. Just
and I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, it's not we just bring Jesus into the picture during Christmas time. It's a year round. We journey with our family. I know in our family, we also, during the Christmas season, is a time where we bring up generosity, because we are celebrating the greatest gift that was ever given. So we do want to give one another generous and faithful gifts, but we also want to give to people who are more in need. So often those little what was it, Christmas catalogs,
Sure.
we
Yeah.
often start giving, and we sit there and set an amount, and as a family we decide how we want to spend some of our money and give to some of the people that need it most, and we want to be thoughtful around those things. We also keep the Christmas story at the forefront, and maybe it's also a little plug that we do have that devotion from Focus of the Family, and I think that's a great way to continue to keep the focus on Jesus, and yet, like, I agree with you, not to diminish the celebration, because throughout scripture there is over and over this idea of celebrating and festivals and rejoicing, because God is a God that likes to celebrate, and we want to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do want to give good gifts, and we do want to have like fantastic, because we are honoring the greatest gift that was ever given, and we're honoring Jesus in it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
That's about all that I have. Is there anything that strikes you, Caleb, as we
Oh, I always lots to say, but Christmas is awesome, and yeah, just remember, Christ is still human. He's still a man, and that was full commit, full send when he took on flesh, and just let that thought sink into you, because maybe you've thought of it before, but it's just revolutionary thinking, and it grounds so much of our ethics. It grounds so much of the reason we celebrate. You can lie your head down tonight with whatever problems you got going on, knowing that there's a human being at the right hand of God, and if he's there and he's for you, what might that mean for you? Yeah, you can call out to him. You can rest on his goodness and what God has done. It's just awesome.
right on? That's a good way to wrap up. Thanks for joining us, and this is Life here at McLaurin. Blessings.
Yeah, blessings. Take care.